Joining us now, Senator Lindsey Graham, who sits on the Judiciary and Armed Services Committee. He is also the chair of the Crime and Terrorism Subcommittee, which is conducting its own Russia probe. Senator, good to have you here this evening.
Thank you.
So the news broke earlier this afternoon that Director Mueller, former FBI Director Mueller, who is in charge, is the special counsel in charge of this investigation, had extensive discussions with former FBI Director Comey about the statement that he put out today and about the testimony as well.
Right. So
what do you make of that? What do you make of that connection and those discussions?
Well, I've been a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and a military judge, and I can tell you what that means. That means in the minds of Special Counsel Mueller, there is no obstruction of justice case to be made, because if he felt like he had a case, he wouldn't let Comey, his chief and only witness, go out in public and get beat up. So I'm convinced that Mueller's looked at the facts, said, yeah, go on and tell your side of the story, but if he really believed there was an obstruction of justice case to be made against the president, he wouldn't let his star and only witness go out and be beat up.
I mean, this special counsel investigation has barely gotten underway. So you're saying that the fact that he let him go out there at all, and we do know that Robert Mueller cleared, was the word, cleared James Comey to go out and talk, that you think he's already reached a conclusion that there's no crime here? And do you mean with regard to the president or overall?
Obstruction of justice. Well, there's only one witness, that's Comey. And what Comey and I think Mueller has concluded, I don't have an obstruction of justice case here. If I believe every word of what Comey said, it doesn't rise to the level of obstruction of justice. What prosecutor in their right mind would allow their star witness to go out before the Senate panel of 20 senators and get beat up if you really believe he had a case? So this is the best evidence yet that in the mind of the special counsel there is no obstruction of justice case to be made against President Trump, because he allowed Comey to testify in public and issue a statement. No prosecutor would ever do that if there was a real case here.
I mean, that's fascinating.
And secondly, Comey has now told us all that the president is not under investigation as an individual for colluding with Russia, that President Trump is not a target or subject to a criminal investigation or counterintelligence investigation regarding colluding with the Russians. All in all, it's a pretty good day for President Trump.
Fascinating. You know, when you take a look at some of the different pieces of this statement that we got from former FBI Director Comey today, there's a couple of things in here that are sort of unusual. And one is that he said, we, meaning the leadership at FBI, concluded that it made little sense, and Ed Henry just spoke about this a moment ago, to report it to Attorney General Sessions, who we expected would likely recuse himself from involvement in the Russia-related investigations. He did so 2 weeks later. Now, this is odd to me, because Comey is saying, you know, we figured he was going to recuse himself. Now, keep in mind that this is the middle of February. The story that Sessions had meetings that he didn't recall or didn't report with Kislyak didn't happen until March 1st. So why was he keeping things from Sessions when there was no indication yet that Sessions had any issue to recuse himself?
I think it was obvious to me from the get-go that Jeff Sessions could not preside over an investigation of the Trump campaign because he was a chief surrogate for President Trump. Jeff Sessions is one of the most decent, honorable men I've ever met. He's very loyal to the president. He loves the law. There is no way in hell that Jeff Sessions could preside over an investigation of a campaign that he was part of. That was never even a remote possibility. And if President Trump is listening tonight, Jeff Sessions had no alternative, Mr. President. As a lawyer, he had to get out of the way of this investigation because he was so close to your campaign. The American people would not tolerate somebody part of the campaign investigating the campaign. That was obvious to me. And what's equally obvious to me, that President Trump, there is no evidence of him colluding with the Russians. And clearly in the mind of Mueller and Comey himself, there is no evidence of obstruction of justice by President Trump. All in all, a pretty good day.
So I take from that you're basically sending a message to President Trump, and you're asking him to back off any tensions that he may have with Attorney General Sessions and allow him to continue in his job?
I think he's one of the most decent people I've met. He had no legal choice. You're not going to let the man who's part of the campaign investigate the campaign. I think that Mueller is going to take this wherever it goes. I think the president is frustrated because he knows he didn't do anything. I made a joke, but it's half jokingly, that the president has a hard time colluding with his staff, so I don't think he colluded with the Russians. Just give this thing the time you need, Mr. President. Stop tweeting. There's a system that's going to work, and I promise you this, Mr. President, you're going to be treated fairly in our committee, and I think this is a good day for you because, one, we now have it public that you're not a subject, a target to an investigation regarding colluding with the Russians, and to any lawyer with a half a brain, they wouldn't let Comey testify if there was a really obstruction of justice case to be made because she wouldn't let your star witness go out in public. Now, what the president's got to do is just focus on infrastructure, focus on cutting taxes, and I'm going to promise the whole country that I'm not going to stand in the way of this investigation. I'm going to make sure the president treated fairly, but we're going to go down the road of did the Department of Justice and the DNC collude with each other to stop the Clinton email investigation.
So that's another issue that we're going to talk about in a moment as well. Senator Lindsey Graham, always good to see you. Thank you so much, sir. Good to have you here. Thank you.